welcome to this special episode of Inge's Knitting Lab, the ultimate overview of the European shoulder construction. Today, we will take a deep dive into one of the more challenging and fascinating aspects of knitting design, the European shoulder. I will share my designer insights on how to transition from the traditional and classic drop shoulder into an increasingly more fitted shoulder and what this means for the fit and the design. With sketches and illustrations, we will explore how this sleeve evolves, both when drawn and also when worn. You may wonder why I'm wearing this work in progress here. Yeah, well, for two reasons. The first one being that I would like to make a reference back to one of my first videos where I talked about my considerations about the European shoulder construction. I was trying to get my arms around this construction type while making my first sweater design, the tree trunk sweater. And at that time, I was aiming for a modified drop shoulder design. Now I'm wearing a new design in the making. I call it the Form&Fit tree trunk cardigan. This time I aim for a full fitted shoulder construction here. And I guess it was in episode 31, I showed you a sketch from a tailor. So I got so inspired from the sewing world and saw this illustration here of the shirt showing the front and the back and how different it is due to the human anatomy, which is not at all the same front and back. And then I thought, well, can you integrate this into the European shoulder construction? So is that even possible? Can you distinguish between the front and the back, doing it in different ways when still knitting top down, not having to sew in the sleeve afterwards? And yeah, well, you can. Here it is. Here it's done. And I have 12 more to show you how I evolved to this final design. So it is possible, and I'm all excited. So in essence, this episode is all about the interplay between human anatomy and human posture and the math and physics in knitting. So consider this episode a boil down of all my research and development the past 2 years, with the calculations, the sketching, the explorations, and countless and endless numbers of hours, days, 2 years. And last but not least, the practice, because during this time of period I have made in total 43 different sweaters and cardigans, finalized all of them to wear in order to understand more of the construction and do all the variations and explore the fantastic versatility of this design. And this design has just entered the testing phase. So if you're up for a challenge, then it's not too late to sign up. Please join us and have a nice nerdy knitting time doing this one. As I won't be revealing every secret of my asymmetrical sleeve design as yet, I'll give you an in-depth overview of my design considerations and critical design decisions to get to this final design here, just entering the test phase. So whether you're a fellow knitting designer or a knitting enthusiast eager to understand the why behind the fit, then please join me unraveling the details behind the European shoulder. Let's get started. Let's have a look back at one of the posters I showed in episode 21, because it gives us a very nice overview of the European shoulder and how you can totally change the look of the design by changing the sleeve fit. So and sleeve shape here. So you see from design A to D, where A is the full drop shoulder sleeve, and the other colors going towards D will give you a more and more fitted shoulder look. So let's move on to the next poster here to see what that means when you draw it on paper and how it impacts the ease of your sweater whether it is very wide with a positive ease or a more classic look with not so much ease or zero ease, or you can even have negative ease of a sweater. Then it is sitting right next to your body. Yeah, so let's look at design A again. So here you see both the back and the front, and when you look at the lines for design A, you will see that it looks like a square. So you kind of knit a tube, but you make room for the neck in the front and in the back. And what is important with this design is that the chest circumference will be defining your sleeve. So depending on the amount of ease you do, the drop shoulder will go further down here. So if you have much ease on your sweater, you can expect that the sleeve will be added down here approximately. So that's design A. And when you move on to design B and C, you will see here that you start defining the underarm. So you make decreases or increases depending on if you are working top down or bottom up, but you make room for the underarm here. And another important thing is that you will see that the arm side depth will decrease. So as you go from model A to D, you also move the arm side depth. We will get back to it. So the design D with the fitted set-in sleeve, the one I'm doing here in the cardigan, you will see also now that there is a difference in the back and the front piece due to the anatomy of the body. And I have to say, I have studied the bodies of males, females, and children, and they are not the same. So when you design a male model, especially in a fitted design, it will be different than when making a female design. Whereas if you design a sweater with a drop shoulder, this square tube here, yeah, well, as long as you get the circumference right, it can fit a male or a female just as well. But you have to take care to make that assumption when you do a design D. So let's move on to the next slide, because now it's very interesting to see how this cut in the design from A to D, how it will influence the look when you wear the sweater. So let's have a look. You see again here design A to D, and what you have to look for is here at the arm, at the underarm of these sketched women here. So in model A, this is a full drop shoulder design, you will see that they will get folds. They will get folds here in the underarm because there is much excess fabric, because you have made this tube with the big sleeves here. And when you start diminishing the arm side and defining the underarm, you will go to less fabric here at the underarm, and at the design D you will see no folds here. And I'm not sure you can see it here, but I will add a lot of pictures of the ones I have already, so you can see in my new design there is absolutely no excess fabric here at the underarm, no folds. Let's just look if I forgot to mention something on this slide here. So yeah, no, you see the folds here on the sides of the underarm towards the hem, and they get smaller and smaller as you move towards design D, where there are no folds and no excess fabric. Okay, let's move on. In the next poster here, you see how the different designs will influence the look of the sleeve, because before we looked at the cut design of the back and the front, but how about the sleeve? So design sleeve A is a trapezoidal sleeve. So it is, first of all, very easy to knit and very easy to add to your knitwear afterwards. So if you make this tube or even circumference up here, it's easy to add the sleeve. As you move on to design B and C, you move on to a symmetrical bell-shaped sleeve. That is, it is the same around the shoulder here. And I've seen this design in these European shoulder constructions where you pick up stitches for the sleeve cap and then you do increments down here. Typically, I've seen that you do an even amount of increments, but also I've seen it done where you actually change a bit to kind of mimic this bell-shaped sleeve. And this is also how I have done it in the female edition of the tree trunk sweater. So now moving on to design D, and this is the new one here that I was not sure was possible. But look what happens. When you do design D, more things happen. So first of all, you see that actually the center of the sleeve is skewed. So you will see more fabric here in the back of the sleeve compared to the front of the sleeve. And you will also see the slope is different in the back and in the front, just as I showed you in the intro here on this one. You see the slope, but that's the front and the back pieces, but that's also what translates into the sleeve. So another thing happening with the sleeve as you go from the drop shoulder towards the fitted sleeve is that the sleeve cap gets higher and higher. And of course, this D design is more complex to knit because you have to take into account a different way to make increments. I'm saying increments because I'm knitting top down. So making increments in the front and in the back. Let's move on to the next slide because we want to dig into this sleeve cap height and actually what does it mean? Let's have a look at the next poster here to see the influence of the sleeve design on the movement of the arm and of the arm side. So let's start with D, that is the full set-in sleeve here, the asymmetrical design. So when you look at the woman wearing a sweater with this design D, you will see that the armhole is only slightly larger than the arm circumference. And when you look at the other ones going towards the drop shoulder construction, you will see that the armhole grows so that it becomes more and more wider than the arm circumference. So you will get a deeper arm side, and definitely, typically with a drop shoulder, you will have the deepest arm side. But what does that mean for the movement of the arm? Let's look at the next poster here. Because maybe this may seem counterintuitive to you, but actually the higher the sleeve cap you have, the more the fitted sleeve. Actually, when you raise your arm, your sweater will not move up. So the deeper the armhole, the more the sweater will raise when you move up your arm because of the deep armhole. So you get more freedom of movement by getting a higher sleeve cap and an armhole which is approximately the same as your arm circumference. So you would ask how much deeper should it be and so on. We will get back to all of these details in a premium video where I will show all the deeper details of how to do this. I will later on share this on Ko-fi, so by your support you can actually get into the very deepest, or it's not deep and dark, but by very details on the design. Okay, let's move on to talking about the influence of body posture when making a sweater design. Is that even a thing? Yeah, it is. And when you make a fitted design, it may be of more importance than if you make a very oversized drop shoulder look, because let's look at the drawings and we can talk about it. So let's see here, because many things will influence how the sweater looks on you. So I don't know if it's the right American word, but slouching, if you walk like this, not with a straight back, it may influence your cup size, your arch on the back here, your butt volume, your tummy volume, etc. Let's have a look at this picture here, which I kindly borrowed from High Loire. I have forgotten where I found it, but it is a very nice drawing, because you see the first woman here, she's standing straight with a nice and straight posture, and the next one, she's kind of arching in her back, and you will see the same sweater will get more volume in the back, or this sweater will kind of flare in the back. And if you see this third woman here, having a nice curves with the bust, but also a nice curve here at the back and the butt, then depending on your design and the circumference, your sweater will touch the butt or it will not do. So this is also a thing if you want, again, this is when you take very much care into the different details and you want the design to be just exactly as it is in your head. Then when scaling this pattern to a lot of sizes, you have to take into account the very difference of the bodies. So if you make a design which fits a size small or medium perfectly, it's not the same thing when you get a size 2XL or 3XL to wear this design. It may sit very differently. And that may also be fine, but if you want the same look when looking at a sweater on all body sizes, then it's not the same sweater actually. Then you have to do it in different ways. And this is what I do with this tree trunk cardigan. So the pattern is not the same for a size small as it is for other sizes. Actually, every size is different with its own pattern, but we will get back to it. So that's what I mean. So it's just, we'll not fix all these issues or talk about them today. It's just to let you in on my considerations when doing a design. Yeah, well, another thing is then when you're a keen knitter and enthusiastic knitter and you want to kind of adjust a pattern you see that you really love, and maybe you're not the standard size or you have another posture than you know the model, then by some tools you can see what to do and then adjust the pattern to your liking so that it fits your body. That's also what I find very challenging, so that we can kind of do this. And again, a link, it's not a commercial, but however, I would like to tell you that I actually have made on Ko-fi these memberships. So if by your support you choose one of these tiers, I will gladly help you to modify a pattern of your liking so that it will fit exactly your body. But that's another story. Back to this subject. Okay. Yeah, I think let's move on to the prototypes and how I have addressed these different things to consider when moving for the full set-in sleeve. I'm wearing my tree trunk sweater now so that you can see what I mean with these illustrations. When I made the tree trunk sweater for the male edition, I aimed for a B version, and when I made for the females, it was a C version. So not going full in, but as far as I could with a bell-shaped sleeve. And you will see here that it is not much, but hopefully you can see, even though it's navy blue, that there is a slight fold here at the underarm. It doesn't go far down as when you have a full drop shoulder. We talked about the fold going from underarm to hem, but a slight one. So in the new design, where I went for design D, I would like to eliminate this fold. So the first considerations in the first prototype. Let me get my notes and we will walk through it. I'm now wearing my prototype number 12. Yeah, you may have seen that it's a high number, and yes, it is. I've made 12, actually 13 now, fully knitted prototypes. And the thing about prototypes is that often you can make a small detail just in a smaller sample and you will see if it works. However, when I do this design and have to see if there's folds in the front and in the back, and if it sits nicely, I have to work the full length because of gravity and how the cardigan drapes and so on. So that's why I made so many, also because it's both female, male and children's version in different sizes. So there you go. Here I am, and as you see, it has no folds here in the front. I have the high sleeve cap here, and yeah, well, as I described earlier on for the design D. So let me go back to my prototypes and share with you my decisions and challenges when evolving this design. So actually I've gifted the first one away already, so I have number 2 here. So the first one was a children's version, and you can see pictures here with 2 different kinds of buttons. It's the same cardigan, and this is to kind of demonstrate that also the button will define the look of your cardigan, very much so. Yeah, but I have the second one here, and it's all about how you start this design to get the nice look. And it is very important to get the back width right, because this defines the design. You can always alternate things lower down, because I made this design as a building block. So you start with one size here, and then you move on to part 2 of the cardigan, where you can actually change to another size. And then in part 3, where you connect the yoke at the underarm, you can adjust again like any other pattern. You can subtract or add some stitches at the underarm to kind of vary the circumference. So the main part is up here. And you would be surprised how many of us are not standard sizes. So when we design sweaters, we use the numbers of standard sizes. But when making this one, it's what's very important to me, to be able to make a design that is so adjustable that you can actually go beyond standard and adjust. And many of us are 2 different sizes here in the upper body, some even 3 sizes different, and you can accommodate this in this pattern. And yeah, that's what I wanted to do. And I was challenged by one of my former testers who said, couldn't you make a design that would go about if you are different sizes in the upper body? And it has been sitting there in my head since the test knit of the lacy cable tee. So thank you very much to Beatella for keeping me on my toes and inspiring me so much. Yeah, back to this second one. So when doing this design, we start making the back increases, and compared to design C, this has a narrower back because we want it higher up on the shoulder. And when you do this, you have fewer rows here in the diagonal seam. Then you also have fewer rows fewer rows to pick up stitches for the front shoulder pieces. So when you vary this one, you vary the width of your shoulder piece, and you also vary the height of the back before you start connecting front and back. So where should I start? because when figuring this out, there are so many variables. But I call it that I want to have this shoulder pocket nice. I want the shoulder to sit so nice here, hugging your shoulder, not going anywhere. Maybe you've tried cardigans that, fall off of your shoulders. But this, I will tell you, it doesn't, because it is hugged here at your shoulder. And this is where a tailored design is a better way of keeping the shoulder in place. So, yeah, one of the challenges was that when you look for standard numbers for the sizes, you often find this shoulder length here. However, I haven't seen anywhere how to find the width of the shoulder depending on size. I know that arms are very much not the same. However, like any other measurement on the body, there had to be some standards, right? But I haven't been able to find it. So if you know where it is or how I can get it, then please let me know. Because right now I had to figure out this on my own for a male and female sizes to get the correct hug here at the shoulder. So when having this base of the sleeve cap, I could now start creating the asymmetrical sleeve, and it has to fit with front and back. So that was kind of the first challenge. So when also looking at this challenge, I'm going back to my first statement in video in episode 21, where I stated that the front and the back pieces of a European shoulder design is the same number of rows. It's the equal in height. However, now making this and going back to this drawing here, then you see that actually the front piece is not as high as the back piece. So what is this now? And how to figure this out in this construction? And I actually tried in smaller sizes to make the front shoulder, the back shoulder. And again, you see these folds in different places. And it's actually so smart that when diagnosing the folds, if they are horizontal, vertical, like this or whatever, you can go back to the cause of the problem and then correct the design. I just figured this out during these past 2 years where I have studying a lot from the sewing world. So now I could see what was wrong having folds front and back and what to do about it. And of course, it's much about how you do the curves on the front and the back, but it's also a matter of the front yoke height and the back yoke height. So actually in this design, this is not the same, because I found that this was the solution to covering these problems. And rather counterintuitive, maybe we make the front pieces a bit longer than the back pieces, and in this way this cardigan will go down a bit, because one of the challenges here is also that if you make them equal high, the back is raised like this and you get this button band up high. So if you make the back a bit shorter than the front shoulder pieces, it will not raise as much and it will look nicer. You will get it shorter here and the underarm will look nice without a fold. And you make room, of course, before connecting the front and the back pieces here. You make the certain length of this one to fit your size. So yeah, there are so many details in designs, because you also have to consider the shoulder drop. But let's not complicate everything here and just move on to the next challenge. So, yeah, I was thinking about the width of this button band. And again, as I said before, when I make a design, I would like it to look the same on every size. This means I have to make the design different for every size. And one example is the button band, because when you have a larger body, it's higher, it's wider. Then if I make the same width of the button band on size small as on size 3XL, for example, then it would look too small. So some of the elements you have to do proportional, which is why the cuffs and the button band and the hem here will actually be longer and wider on the bigger sizes. So that's also one element, not specific to the European shoulder though, but just in general. Yeah. One more thing. Yeah. So when looking at, maybe I should add my drawing here. When looking at this drawing, maybe you saw another video where I drew and cut the European shoulder out in paper. You see here the inherent element of the European shoulder, because you start making these back increases, pick up stitches here for the front shoulder piece. And when you make these front shoulders, they fold over like this. And when you look at the design here and go back to math classes, when you then figure out the length of the sides, you see that a square plus b square equals c square. So actually c is longer, this side is longer than these two, which means actually when you make a European shoulder design, you have to take into account to make some decreases here at the sleeve in order for the sleeve to look nice over the shoulder when it's set in one. So that's the first thing. And when you then move on to do the asymmetrical look of the sleeve design, you have to consider even more decreases depending on size. So that's also an element. Yeah. And while, making these prototypes, I was also thinking about the V-neck. And again, for different sizes, have different depth of the V-neck to look equal in design when looking at the different sizes. And you can also consider where to start the V-neck before you connect the pieces, or when you connect the pieces, to work back and forth with both back and front shoulder pieces. So that's also been one of my considerations. I have one cardigan here. My grandson, he wanted an apple green one with blue, and these buttons here also marbled with green and blue. And here I experimented with the shoulder and also the V-neck. And in this one also, it's a size 4 years old, I then implemented this, what I call the Pythagoras solution up here. And when you do in children's sizes, it's not as complex. Yeah, it's complex in another way, because the small bodies have not evolved with a lot of curves yet. So some of the elements from the adult versions is not necessary here. So that's what you also have to take into account. But front and back length is still an issue. I have another one here where I played with this marbled wool, or you call it donegal, spots here, and picking one of the spots for the button band. So again, there are many possibilities. And while playing with this, I was thinking, well, I could also try making a coat for little Flora. So this is a size 2 years old with a color here in the loveliest Highland wool boucle. So ever so soft, and with a band to, it's a bit hard with my new camera because it wants my head. But here you see, I can show you some pictures. So I made a button band in double knitting for the closure, and I actually haven't decided yet how I will close it. I have considered zippers some buttons, some duffel coat buttons or whatever to do, or you could just have it this way, because again, when doing the steeking, I make it like this so that it is equally nice on the back and the front. So I could just leave it be like this, no problem. You see all the stitch markers here because I use short rows to do this color here. Yeah, what else to talk about in the prototypes? Yeah, while I did this one and the female editions, I also worked on how to do the bust starts even better. Because when doing bust starts, it's because you need more fabric in the front. Otherwise, if you have a relatively large bust, the sweater or cardigan will raise in the front. But you also need extra width here in the front. So if you just add something here and it gets wider over here, you will get folds, right? So again, learning from the sewing world, how can you do the dart in a smarter way? And I learned from some experienced knitters another way to do it. We will cover it in another episode. But that was quite smart, because if you don't consider both dimensions of the bust, then if you have a relatively large bust, but your what's it called? but your tummy is not as wide as your bust, then the cardigan or the sweater will flare out and it is not so flattering. So we have to solve it, right? Yeah, so I mean, maybe I didn't show you this one where I have made this curvy sleeve, and you will also see the curves in the back for this size. It looks like this. Yeah, so maybe I should show you this one is yeah, I have unraveled this one because I wanted this size to be a bit different here. So instead of yeah, well, I made more and blocked it to see if it works, and then I've unraveled to use the yarn, and I saw a trick on Instagram. I'm sorry, I don't recall who, I didn't save it. I will do in the future, but now I posted my own where I actually saved the yarn by unraveling and then passing the strand above a boiling water pot here so it gets the steam. I will show you a video on how it works. I've made a lot of ribbing back in this project and I wanted to reuse the yarn. And I saw this reel, I'm sorry, I don't recall who posted that you could actually straighten the yarn by steaming it like this. So I place the unraveled yarn inside one of the holes here in the lid and put it through the hole on the other side. And yeah, well, then I just wind it through the holes here, passing the steam. And I just make sure that it boils ever so slightly. So I turn down the heat here. And it works. Look, it's perfect. I'm happy. It was so smart, and you cannot see that this yarn has been used before. So again, for this size, you see the curves here. So I think it's very subtle in the design. This is my final one in this female edition, where I only need to sew the steek and cut it open to make the button band. Maybe I neglected to say, but this design is worked in the round, and then you make the steek, cut open and add the button band afterwards, because I find that it is much faster for me, and I also knit better and with a more even tension when knitting in a round compared to knitting back and forth. So that's why I do it. And yeah, well, This is a bold color. My grandmother said, I think you need a tan for that color. And I guess she's right. So I have to get out a bit more to enjoy the spring sun here in Denmark. But I thought I could use this one as I knew I would rip back a lot to get it all right here. But I think now that I use the steaming method, you won't be able to see it when I have finalized this one, that I reused the yarn. Yeah, I think, did I forget anything? Let me just consult my notes and get back to you. I have changed to the last one here, so for you to see that a lot happens when you add the button band. It kind of course, also when you block the sweater, it adds the structure to the cardigan and gets it in place here. As we move on in this video, I would like to invite you to help support my work going into these designs. You can support me by going to my Ko-fi page or by PayPal me. Your support will not just help me doing my research and share my insights, but it also fuels my countless hours of research and development, which goes into these final designs that will become a pattern reaching your needles. Soon I will be releasing the detailed mechanics of this design, not just my considerations and the theory behind it, but how to do it stitch by stitch. And you can access these videos or this knowledge either by buying my pattern, of course, but also you can do it by buying these videos, which will be accessible on my Ko-fi page. In these videos, as I said, we will dive into the practical side of things when doing this asymmetrical sleeve design. Think of this as an investment about the cost of a bullet skein of yarn, and this will ensure the high quality testing and refinement of my designs, hopefully reaching your needles soon. I would also like to touch upon a sentiment that I've heard in the knitting community here in Denmark. In Denmark, a campaign has been running because Danish designers caution about copying of the designs and sharing them for free on the internet. Also sharing patterns in knitting communities among friends. I can highly understand why this happens, because you're happy you have designs you would like to share with your friends and you are keen and eager to learn the new techniques. However, you may forget that behind each and every of these designs there are countless numbers of hours of research and development to go into this design, and it is the living of the designer. It's our job. So no selling of patterns, no pay for the cost that goes into making designs, and no salt to the egg, so to speak. So consider buying a pattern like buying an extra bullet skein. It's typically around a bullet skein in cost, and this is an investment in the time and effort made by the designer to make this pattern available to you and being able to continue doing so. As I said, it is our job and our way of living. Thank you so much for listening and engaging in these ideas of support and supporting independent knitting design. It means a lot to me and fellow knitting designers. So I guess with this new design soon coming to life, I have ended my research in the European shoulder design. So I'll be ready to move on to another construction type. Maybe it could be the rounded yoke or a compound raglan. And I will make the same research and development and deep dive into all the details to make a blend of math and physics and knitting techniques to become a nice, well-fitting design. So which of those would you prefer to be my first or next encounter, so to speak? Let me know in the comments. And yeah, well, I think we have reached the end of the episode. I hope you found it inspirational, interesting, maybe so interesting and intriguing that you would like to sign up for the tester team. Please send me a mail if you want to come on board with us nerdy knitters here in the team. It's not too late. Otherwise, let's meet in upcoming videos where I will share the details of this cardigan. So until the next episode, Roger and Ova from Inge's Knitting Lab. Happy knitting. Bye bye.